Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Today, I welcome everyone to His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaja's daily call. Today, Maharaj is going to enlighten us on the topic of Ekadashi and about chanting. So today, Maharaj is going to enlighten us on this topic. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, you can please take over, Guru Maharaj. Is there any verse to share, Guru Maharaj? Please let me know.
Let's see. Well, I had forgotten that we chose this topic, but since you mentioned it, we'll go with it. All right. I think we can come up with something here. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksunilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pucharine. Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya Dev Satarine. Panchakopa Turubhischa Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Can you hear me?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, yeah.
Okay. So, from the very beginning of his childhood, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the system of observing a fast on the Ekadashi day. In Bhakti Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami, there is a quotation from the Skanda Purana admonishing that a person who eats grains on Ekadashi becomes a murderer of his mother, father, brother, spiritual master, and even if he is elevated to the Vaikuntha planet, he falls down. On Ekadashi, everything is cooked for Vishnu, including regular grains and dal, but it is enjoined that a Vaishnava should not even take Vishnu Prasad on Ekadashi. It is said that a Vaishnava does not accept anything edible that is not offered to Lord Vishnu. But on Ekadashi, a Vaishnava should not touch even Mahaprasadam offered to Vishnu, although such prasadam may be kept for being eaten the next day. It is strictly forbidden for one to accept any kind of grain on Ekadashi, even if it's offered to Lord Vishnu. That's from Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 15, verse 10. Ekadashi literally means the 11th day, because we know the word Eka means 1 and Dasi means 10. So the word Ekadashi means the 11th day. There are 2 Ekadashis in the month, on the 11th day after the new moon, and on the 11th day after the full moon. I think we are observing the one right now after the full moon. On all vratas, vows of austerity, Vishnu is most pleased, and those who observe Ekadashi, especially those who observe the Ekadashi vrata. Therefore, anyone who does not observe the vrata and eats grains on Ekadashi is said to eat sin, for he disobeys the Lord's order and thus displeases him. Thus, although Ekadashi fasting is good for health, it should be undertaken for the sake of pleasing Krishna. To observe Ekadashi vrata and Dwadashi vrata means to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness must observe Ekadashi regularly. That's from Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.29. Hari Bhakti Vilas, the scripture Hari Bhakti Vilas, quotes from many other scriptures to establish the necessity of observing the Ekadasi Vrata, to glorify that Vrata, to establish the proper day on which to observe the Vrata, and to give the proper mode of observances. Observing the Ekadasi Vrata is one of the principal duties of a Vaishnava. To fail to do so is a serious offense. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung Madhavi Titi Bhakti Janani Jatane Palarakari. That's from his song Sudha Bhakata. Madhavi Titi Bhakti Janani Janate Palarakari. That's from Sudha Bhakta from Saranagati. I observe with great care the holy days like Ekadasi and Janmashtami, for they are the mother of devotion. Note that term, mother of devotion, is applied to Ekadasi and Janmashtami. All people, male and female, in all castes and ages, from 8 to 80, should observe the Ekadasi Vrata in all circumstances. So here it gives that from the age of 8, one should at least begin following the Ekadasi. One can do it before then, but one should do it at least from 8 all the way up to the age of 80 and beyond, of course. This applies to the Ekadasis of both the waxing, Gora or Sukla, and waning, which is called Krishna Paksha, phases of the moon. All devotees must avoid the following foods. Listen carefully as I read them. Grains, which are wheat and rice, dal, peas, bean-type vegetables, mustard seeds, sesame seeds, except on Satil Ekadasi, when sesame seeds may be offered and eaten. So there's one Ekadasi which falls in January. It's called Satil Ekadasi, where one can eat sesame seeds. Otherwise, sesame seeds are strictly forbidden. Other derivatives of food such as wheat flour, mustard oil, soybean oil must be avoided, and foods containing these products. For instance, care should be taken in using powdered spices, which, if mixed with flour, should not be used in Ekadasi. This is very important to understand, because mostly all of the kind of powdered spices we get, such as turmeric, asafoetida, and others, generally are mixed with flour to expand their quantity, and that way this is a cheating process they do in order to make more money. Particularly commercial prepared asafoetida is always mixed with flour and is not to be used on Ekadasi. Even a slight piece of grain is ingested even accidentally, the Ekadasi fast is broken. Devotees should not even think of neglecting the Ekadasi fast unless its observance would severely strain their health. Only in rare cases, those who are physically unable to fast, they take grains on the Ekadasi, but then only with the explicit permission of their spiritual master. Those who, in the course of the year, break the Ekadasi fast even once, should observe the yearly Bhima Nirjal Ekadasi, which comes in the month of June every year. Pancharatrik Pradipa says, one who very strictly observes Ekadasi should avoid all spices except pepper, rock salt, and cumin. In other words, even if they're not mixed with, all spices should be avoided on this day. And pepper, rock salt, and cumin are the only ones. Certain vegetables also, such as tomatoes, cauliflower, eggplant, and leafy vegetables, These should also be avoided. Simpler than this and even more strict is to fast completely. Srila Prabhupada usually observed the Ekadashi fast in the simpler manners prescribed in scripture by refraining from eating grains, beans, peas, and dals. Sometimes he observed a half-day fast. Some devotees eat only fruit on Ekadashi. Some take only water, and some fully fast and even from water. This latter is called Nirjal Vrata. No grain, high carbohydrate foods are prepared on Ekadashi. Sango, tapioca is a common example. But sango, tapioca, is sometimes mixed with rice flour and apparently sometimes even with crushed insects. So unless one is sure about the source, sango, tapioca should be avoided. In Indian, preparations resembling chapatis and rice are made on the Ekadashi from non-grain ingredients. Srila Prabhupada was pleased if his disciples strictly observed Ekadashi, but he did not emphasize. Here's a little dialogue. Tamal Krishna goes, I told Prabhupada, this is Tamal Krishna Swami speaking, I told Srila Prabhupada we were strictly observing Ekadashi, no eating or drinking. He said, very good. Actually, on Ekadashi day, we should not take any food or even drink water. But in our society, we're not doing so strictly. We say, oh, Ekadashi, you don't take food grains. Take a little fruit, a little milk. Ekadashi day, there is no eating sumptuously. Simply you take a little fruit and flour. Prabhupada says flour, but he doesn't mean, wheat flour. He means, the flour that grows outside. Try to avoid that. You don't even take water. That is really Ekadashi. But because we cannot do it in the Kali Yuga, the time is different. Therefore, we're allowed to take a little fruit and milk, which is called anukalpa. For those who are accustomed to full fasting from a young age and have physical strength for it, refraining from food and water and Ekadashi, that is an excellent practice. Not only food, but also sleep is supposed to be given up or minimized on Ekadashi. Those who are practiced may also stay awake all night on Ekadashi, chanting the glories of the Lord. So that's also done by those who follow strictly. They stay all the way through the next day, and then when the sunrise comes on the Dwadasi day, they break the fast. Yet, due to so many discrepancies of modern life, the physical strength of the average person is much less than when this type of fasting was commonly practiced. Therefore, many devotees who try to follow this vow become physically devastated. Even if they force themselves to stay awake through the night, they cannot properly chant because of hunger, weakness, and tiredness. In such cases, it's better to follow the process of devotional service according to one's physical ability, rather than attempt something one cannot properly do. Fasting means if you don't feel weak, then you fast. Not that you imitate Raghunath Das Goswami. That is not possible in the beginning, but is possible if you practice. That's from the Srimad Bhagavatam lecture given by Srila Prabhupada on July 6th, 1975. Continue. It's not unusual to feel a little weak when fasting, although with practice one can fast without being disturbed by weakness. However, if the devotee feels too weak to properly perform his standard service, it is better to take a little non-grain prasadam on Ekadashi and continue with his regular activities. If there is service and on my fasting, service will be stopped. In other words, if I have service and I'm fasting, then Prabhupada says, then you can take first consideration service. Now, if somebody feels weak, he can take Mahaprasadam, render service. That's a morning walk. Los Angeles, June 7th, 1976. Full fasting on Ekadashi is good for health and good practice in restraining the senses, yet the main purpose of Ekadashi Vrata is to increase remembrance of Krishna. One who thinks of food instead of Krishna gets little benefit from Ekadashi. Note that statement. If you're fasting and you're thinking of food instead of Krishna, you get very little benefit. It is therefore better, both for health considerations and to help the mind from being diverted, to break fast with a simple meal. One of the limbs of the vrata or vow is to diminish the devotee's propensity for enjoyment. If one thinks, today somehow or other I will renounce, but tomorrow I will enjoy profusely, then the purpose of the vow will not be successful. If a devotee who is fasting sleeps more due to weakness, real or imagined weakness, sometimes we imagine it, and he cannot rise the next morning, or makes elaborate arrangements to enjoy breaking the fast the next morning, he will derive very little benefit. And Tamal Krishna Goswami asked Srila Prabhupada if devotees could fast fully on Ekadashi. Prabhupada replied, yes, but don't lie down and sleep. Artificial observance is merely a superficial austerity. Indeed, the disturbance of the devotee's regular routine and service may even be a hindrance to his spiritual advancement. Nor should devotees do strict fasting to impress others, or think themselves superior for doing so, or to put pressure on others to also do so. So Ekadashi fasting is optional and should not be forced onto anyone. Now the next category here within the topic of Ekadashi is timing. Observance of Ekadashi Vrata is calculated to begin at sunrise. 1 minute. Haribo, Hare Krishna. Do they prepare that vegetable for devotees too?
No, this is just for some.
Okay. And any other spices are used, they're also subject to being mixed with grains. We observe Ekadashi from sunrise to sunrise. 12 midnight in the Western astronomical calculation, but the Vedic astronomical calculation begins either from sunrise or the moonrise. Generally, it is sunrise. Our calculation is like this. When the sunrise is there, Ekadashi date, Titi, must be there. If the Titi begins a few minutes after the sunrise, then we accept that day as prior to Ekadashi. So that's by Srila Prabhupada in one of his letters to one of his devotees. If one eats grains during the period from sunrise to sunrise, one breaks the vrata. He will not get the results of fasting. He will get impious reactions as well. In Vedic culture, the day begins at sunrise, no matter when the lunar Titi begins. The Vedic system differs from the Gregorian calendar inasmuch as the days named are deemed to begin at sunrise rather than midnight. Therefore, technically speaking, since Ekadashi or any other day does not begin until sunrise, one could eat grains before sunrise. However, one should generally not eat in the pre-dawn hours, and especially not on Ekadashi. Hence, Ekadasi fasting and other observances should be followed from the time of waking up on the Ekadasi throughout the day. So here's that point. On the day that you wake up, then you begin your fasting at that time. So Vaishnavas are particular not to eat anything after sunset the night before, to make sure there is no undigested food left in the stomach on the Ekadasi day. Next category is called breaking the fast. Ekadasi fasting ends with breaking the fast the next day by taking grain, prasadam. Prarana, which ends the fast, must be performed within a specific time, calculated separately for each Dwadasi. For the dates of Ekadasi and the times for breakfast, one can consult the Vaishnava calendar. The specific calendar used by ISKCON should be used as the prescribed dates for Ekadasi and important festivals, but they may vary according to the system used by the pundits in each sampradaya. If devotees accidentally break the fast on Ekadasi, they should observe fasting on the following day, and make that note. So if you break the Ekadasi, you should fast the next day and follow Ekadasi then. The devotees inadvertently broke the Ekadasi vow because the cook accidentally put peas in the vegetable preparation. Srila Prabhupada told us we are all nonsense. He angrily rebukes us. Now you have to fast for 3 days, he said. This shocked everyone. Yes, that is the procedure, he confirmed. Seeing the stunned look on our faces, he relented by saying that we should observe Ekadasi for the rest of the day and then again tomorrow on Dwadasi. Similarly, in the morning fast to be observed on the appearance day of an acharya or an avatar, if it is inadvertently broken, one should follow that same principle and fast on the next day. Bhima Nirjala Ekadasi. Okay. It is said that Pandava Bhima could not observe fasting on the Ekadasi, and so Lord Krishna told him to fully fast, even from water, only once a year. This comes annually in the month of Tripikram, at the hottest time of the year in India, which makes it a great austerity to observe. This day is also known as Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi, or simply Nirjala Ekadasi. Srila Prabhupada did not emphasize strict following of Nirjala, that is, without taking water. Harisari Prabhu recounts, when I was with Srila Prabhupada in 1976, Nirjala Ekadasi was observed while we were in America. Prabhupada never mentioned that we should strictly observe it by fasting from water. Next category is remembering Krishna. For many devotees, Ekadasi simply means a change of diet. Many hardly even notice Ekadasi coming and going, but Ekadasi observation means much more than refraining from eating grains. The traditional system of following Ekadasi Vrata is to fast and stay awake all night chanting the Lord's glories. It is a 3-day austerity that entails taking only one simple meal before nightfall on Dasami, which is the day before Ekadasi, and a simple meal on Dwadasi, the day after Ekadasi. Although this strict observance may not be practical for most devotees, everyone should try to take advantage of the auspicious time of Ekadasi to advance in Krishna consciousness. Well, there's about another 2 pages to read, but I'll skim through it now. But here's something important coming from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, which says one who observes fasting on the Ekadasi day is freed from all kinds of reactions to sinful activities and advances in pious life. The basic principle is not just to fast, but to increase one's faith and love for Govinda, or Krishna. The real reason for observing Ekadashi fasting is to minimize the demands of the body and to gauge our time in the service of Lord by chanting and performing similar service. The best thing to do on fasting days is to remember the pastimes of Govinda and hear his holy name constantly. Srila Prabhupada recommended that devotees with sufficient time chant 25 or more rounds of japa on Ekadashi. Then the question comes, why 25 rounds? Or why just 25 rounds? You should chant as many as possible. Real Ekadashi means fasting and chanting and no other business. When one observes fasting, chanting becomes easy. So on Ekadashi, other businesses can be suspended as far as possible, unless there is some urgent business. That is a letter to Janarati, July 9th, 1971. However, although Srila Prabhupada told a few devotees to chant 25 rounds of Ekadashi, he did not make it compulsory for all. He particularly exempted devotees busy in preaching from the necessity to chant extra rounds. Now here's a little discussion. Tamal Krishna Goswami. Prabhupada, we should always chant 25 rounds on Ekadashi if initiated. Srila Prabhupada, initiated? Everyone. Why only initiated? Tamal Krishna. So that should be the standard for a movement on Ekadashi day. Prabhupada, standard is 16, but if you can chant more, then that is welcome. Tamal Krishna, it is not mandatory for Ekadashi. Jayapataka Maharaj recommended. Prabhupada, no, Ekadashi means that, fasting and chanting. Tamal Krishna, sometimes I'm wondering, because our men have to go out on book distribution. Prabhupada, no, that is also preaching work. For that person, you can stop this. But generally, one who has no preaching work, he can chant extra. And then there's some discussion here. And even preachers sometimes need to wind down and get recharged with an extra dose of hearing and chanting, by which Ekadashi performance provides the ideal opportunity. Okay, so here is another category. This is called distribution of grain prasadam on the Ekadashi. Whether or not grain prasadam should be given to non-devotees on the Ekadashi is likely to be eternally debated. Some argue that karmis will eat grains anyway, and at least they can be benefited if they take prasadam. But when Srila Prabhupada was asked by Mahamsa Swami if grain prasadam could be distributed to the public on Ekadashi, he resorted, do you want them to go to hell? However, other devotees have reported Srila Prabhupada told devotees to distribute grain prasadam to the public on Ekadashi. So apparently, Prabhupada said different things in different situations. As in any case of doubt, there is no harm to take the more cautious approach. Here's the point. That would entail serving only grainless prasadam on Ekadashi to both devotees and non-devotees. There's no difficulty in doing so, and there are thousands of delicious preparations that can be made without grains. It could even become a topic of preaching in our restaurants, where recipients of Krishna prasadam who are curious enough to inquire can be told about the reasons for observing Ekadashi restrictions. It continues. On Ekadashi, strict followers of Vaishnava regulations avoid eating any Mahaprasadam from offering that includes grains. This is interesting. Strict followers of Vaishnava avoid eating any Mahaprasadam from any offering that includes grains. In other words, if the grains are offered to Vishnu and there is some non-grain on the plate, those who are strict followers will not even take the non-grain because that was part of an offering with grains. Shastra explains that Papa Purush, sin personified, takes shelter in grains on Ekadashi, and therefore we should avoid grains at all costs, not even risking taking non-grain preparations of Mahaprasadam for an offering plate containing grains. Ekadashi Mahaprasadam should be stored until the next day. If that is not possible, it can be distributed to persons not strictly following Vaishnava regulations or to animals. In fact, Mahaprasadam maintains the purity of Ekadashi despite the presence of Papa Purush, and therefore it will purify anyone who eats it. Nevertheless, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are strict followers of the Vaishnava regulations. Avoid Mahaprasadam on that day because their strict sadhana will be hampered by the presence of Papa Purush. Last point here, shaving. This is also important. Shaving, cutting nails, and rubbing oil on the body are also forbidden on the Ekadashi. Because Ekadashi is a day for austerity, and appearance days of the Lord, incarnations of great devotees that fall on Ekadashi are celebrated with festivals and feasting on Dwadasi, the day after Ekadashi. Srila Prabhupada laughed when he heard a devotee reciting Sarira Avidya Jal on Ekadashi because that refers to taking grains. Okay, so this is references from Sri Bhakti Loka by Anandamaya Das, also by Bhanu Swami, and also from other parts of the Shastras and discussions by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so now you have a little bit of information about Ekadashi. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. It's like a refresher for all of us, I guess, about Ekadashi. So what are the rules and regulations we have to follow? Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj, for reminding us once again. Dear devotees, if you have any questions or any realizations to share, please go ahead. Raj Prabhu, please go ahead.
Turn on your cameras.
Yeah, please. I request everyone to turn on your cameras. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Maharaj. Thank you for that information, Maharaj. I learned quite a few things that I didn't know. You gave us so much information, I was actually struggling to keep up with it all. So I wondered if you could clarify a couple of points for me.
Okay.
One of them was,
before you begin, I'll also just want to say I'll make that document available to everyone. I'll send it to Srimati right after the class, and anyone who wants it can just write to her and she'll send it all. Is that okay?
that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. What is your questions?
Okay. About the when the fast starts, because once time I heard you saying the fast starts from the sun sets the previous day, and at one point I heard you saying from the time that you get up on Ekadashi day, and I was a bit confused because I didn't hear the circumstances properly around.
Yeah. Well, what I was reading was a recommendation that it does start on sunset, but in order to observe and to be in the right consciousness, one should avoid eating as soon as one wakes up. In other words, which will be the most 2 or 3 hours before, say sunrise is at 6 o'clock. So if you get up at 3, then you just don't take anything till 6. But of course, officially the Ekadashi hasn't started. But then again, we're mixing 2 cultures together. And so in order to somehow find some balance of both the austerity and practicality, we make these considerations.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
And regarding the sleep, is it a rule that there should be no sleep at all? Sometimes
If
it may
it's
be very
as we were reading, you'll notice there was some statements that it's absolutely necessary, it's become emergency due to health or to weakness. Generally, weakness that comes by way of Ekadashi fasting is not the weakness that comes because of sleep. It's just the body is somehow or other being adjusted. And therefore, in the adjustment period, one will feel weak. You have to understand that, practically speaking, when you change your routine, your body's going to go through some different experiences. One may be sleepiness, tiredness, but it may have nothing to do with needed sleep. Or it may, but then again, considering the situation, in other words, just say that one is actually tired and it has nothing to do with the fasting, and one has to do their service. So then one should consider, well, maybe I should take a little rest so I can do my service.
okay. Thank you.
I think part of all of these consideration is sincerity to the principles of devotional service, and not what is convenient for the body and mind.
And is Mahaprasadam fruit acceptable, or should that be rejected as well?
It is. Mahaprasadam fruit is acceptable. But then again, we read one statement where if it's part of a larger offering where there is grains on that offering, then it says strict Vaishnavas will not take that. But it's not against the Ekadashi, it's just those who are strict avoid that connection completely. But if the offering does not contain any grains on it, then obviously it's fine. But the most important thing is to remember Krishna more on this day. And the best way to facilitate that is to make a numerical increase of one's japa. For instance, I chant 40 rounds on Ekadashi. I chant 20 rounds every day, so I double it on Ekadashi and chant 40. So that's my austerity. And so one can also think, well, the idea is to remember Krishna more and to become more detached from the bodily activities. Then let me increase my chanting and make a numerical vow. I know in India, there's a group of devotees who are followers of Radha Gopinath Temple in Bombay. And they have a sangha on that day at 2 o'clock in the morning on the Ekadashi day. They all assemble and they chant 100. They chant, let's see, they chant, let's see, on the Ekadashi day, they chant 64 rounds. Yeah. And on the Nirjala Ekadashi, they chant 192 rounds within a 24-hour period. And I think on Srila Haridas Thakur's disappearance day, they also do a large chanting vrata. I can't remember the number on that day. But 64 on and then 64 on every Ekadashi, and 192 rounds on Nirjala Ekadashi. So if you're living in Bombay, you can join the group. I'd be happy to give you the means by which you can connect to that group. And there's some, I mean, it covers 24 hours straight, but in between they read a little bit of Shastra also.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for clarifying all those points.
Yeah. I know one devotee, he's a full-time family man. He also runs a business. And he, even on his days of working in his business, he follows Nirjal every Ekadashi. That means he takes no fruit, no water, and no food, and goes to work the whole day. So it's just a matter of accustoming yourselves to it. Once you get accustomed to a particular vrata, it becomes natural and easy. The initial part is difficult, getting accustomed. But if you're determined, you can do it. Of course, the considerations, if it's going to impinge on your health, then that should be considered also and avoided.
Raj Prabhu, that does answer your question.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Devotees, any more questions or comments? Guru Maharaj, while the devotees are waiting, so I have a question. Like you said about you read about the distribution of a grain prasadam to the non-devotees, or any. So how can we? Is it very strict, Guru Maharaj, that we should not distribute grain prasadam to anybody else who is not following Ekadasi, or to the kids, suppose in the families, if wife and husband are very new to Krishna consciousness, and they don't give non-grain prasadam to kids. So at that time, what should they do, Guru Maharaj?
Well, it says from 8 to 80.
Yeah, but even 8 years, above 8 years also, they feel that they are very young and they can't do Ekadasi. So
No, it's just the mind just telling us that. It's actually healthy to observe Ekadasi. I mean, Prabhupada gave us a minimum: no grains, no beans. What's so hard about that for one day? You still can take fruits and vegetables. You can still take, milk products.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
I mean, how? It's not like it's torture. It's actually nice. I love Ekadasis because after Ekadasi, I always feel really good. I
Yes.
feel light. My japa is better, and I have more energy. Fasting gives energy. Fasting doesn't take away energy. Initially, as they say, the body is going through changes when you change your routine. But once you get into that routine, then you'll start seeing the body could adapt, and it starts to energize. Food generally doesn't give energy to the body. It's the soul that gives energy. The soul gives energy. Then how is it possible? Just like, for instance, I read one article, one man in India. This was an article in a newspaper, one magazine in India. He took no food and no water his whole life. Nothing. He's living on air.
Okay.
Prana. Prana gives life to the body. Now, of course, we don't recommend you doing that, but I'm just using that as an example to show that the body can adapt. It's the mind that gives us trouble. It tells us, oh, my sense gratification is being stopped.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. But nowadays, on the name of Ekadasi, we are doing sense gratification. I feel sometimes like it's not fasting, it's feasting. Some days.
That's wrong.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, one should not eat sumptuously on Ekadasi, even if you follow the non-grain diet. That's another defect. What is the purpose of Ekadasi? There's 6 pushings of the tongue, pushings of the mind, pushings of the speech, pushings of the belly, the pushings of the genitals, and one more pushing. These different senses are always looking for satisfaction. So one of the pushings is the pushings of the belly. It says, fill me up. So this is where Ekadasi helps you to overcome this pushing of the belly. And that will help in giving you clear vision and also to practice your devotional service. Once you start practicing Ekadasi regularly, you look forward to Ekadasis.
Yes,
You'll immediately experience the spiritual benefit and even the health benefit too. Very healthy. Even people in the material world, they recommend that people fast at least a couple times a month just to get their health back in shape. Fasting is good for health.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, in naturopathy, they say that you have to fast every week, 1 day every week you can fast just on water. Then your body will heal and it will revive.
Yeah. The mind just tells us, oh, where's my sense gratification? Oh, I can't get anything, so I'll just go to sleep. That's the cheating process.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Namrata Mataji, you want to go ahead?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, I wanted to ask about can we feed animals on grains on that animals or birds with grains on Ekadashi day?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Can we feed on? Can we feed grains to? Does it? I mean, does this Ekadashi day apply to animals and birds also? Should we feed them with grains or not?
Well, they don't follow Ekadashi, obviously. Ekadashi is for spiritual benefit. I mean, you ask the bird, all right, I'm not going to give you any grains today, but you have to chant Hare Krishna. He's just going to say, you know, it's going to make his bird sounds. So.
I'm asking this, Guru Maharaj, because I daily I feed birds, so I wasn't sure on Ekadashi day I should give the chapatis or not. That is a grain. So
I think, well, I would say this. You can give him something else, fine. If you can't, just give him the grains. That's how I would do
okay. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Okay.
Revati Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for this class. I have a question about, in general fasting also we have like other days like Chaturmasya, we fast from yogurt, and last month it was from green vegetables. So as an initiated devotee, how strictly we have to follow these things also? Like
Chaturmasya?
yes.
Yeah, Prabhupada writes that in the purport, one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Chaturmasya. He said, devotees, we are not actually following the Chaturmasya as it's given. We're following a very small part of the Chaturmasya. And that small part is, you know, no spinach the first month, no yogurt the second month, no milk the third month, and no dal the fourth month. So Prabhupada said we should follow that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Some temples, they just disregard that, but it's written, Prabhupada has written it, I can send you the verse. It's in a purport. Prabhupada makes it. Prabhupada said, you know, when there seems to be sometimes a discussion on Prabhupada said one thing one time, one thing another time. But one thing he said for sure, whatever I want to establish as a principle is in my books. Now, when you find something in the books, then it's not optional. It's a principle of philosophy, it's a principle of practice. Prabhupada writes that in one purport.
Okay. So Guru Maharaj, just in case if we couldn't follow that, like yogurt.
Why can't you follow that? So easy. I mean, that's like, it's easier than breathing. So easy. I can't give up yogurt. Oh, I gotta have my yogurt. My yogurt is my love. I love yogurt. Like, I mean, that's when you can't follow that. That sounds like a non-devotee. That's so easy. Prabhupada said spinach the first month, yogurt the second month. The toughest one is the milk fast. I mean, not taking milk for a month. That's a little more difficult. But it's just the mind. It's just the mind telling you all these things. We listen to the mind. The mind will tell you anything and everything. The mind is always making plans for the rest of the body to enjoy. That's the business of the mind. The intelligence keeps the mind from acting independently by connecting ourselves to higher knowledge. What's so hard about Chaturmasya? It's so easy. I must admit, the milk fast, which is coming up the next month, it's a little more difficult. But once you don't do it, once you practice not doing it for a while, it's easy. It's just a matter of saying no to the mind.
Okay, Guru Maharaj, yeah, definitely. I think it's all mind, as you said. So I should train the mind. Yeah, sure. I'll definitely follow it. Yeah, thank
And
you.
you have to understand it. You're following the instructions of the spiritual master. You're getting spiritual benefit. When you break the instructions, you go down. Oh, God made it simple. If you want to know what actually Chaturmasya is, it's much more severe than that. Much more. Chaturmasya is, for men, they don't shave, they don't cut any nails for the whole 4 months. They eat once a day, only khichdi. And you eat khichdi once a day by putting a plate of khichdi on the floor in a dish. You put your hands behind your back, and with your head going down towards the khichdi, without touching the plate, you eat just with your tongue. And then when you stop eating, when you come up, that's all you get for that day. That's Chaturmasya. You want to try that one?
Yeah, instructions, definitely. I'll try.
We don't recommend it. I know one devotee in New Vrindavan, he did it. He did the whole thing for 4 months. Just eating khichdi. Now, khichdi has to have no spices, no salt, plain dal and rice cooked together. That's all. That's the khichdi. There's no salt, there's no spices in there either. That's Chaturmasya, but Prabhupada made it easy. No spinach, no yogurt, no milk, no dal.
Yeah, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, sure, definitely.
I think we've undergone more. I mean, you have 2 children, right?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yes.
Yeah, that means you had to give birth to 2 children. That's tough. That's more of an austerity than Chaturmasya. Men don't know what women have to go through in order to bring a child into the world. It's very difficult. But it's we call it the burden of love. So it's done willingly because it's based on love. So we should also follow the instructions of the spiritual master to show our love for Krishna.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like the point which you said, like food doesn't give energy, soul gives energy to the body. Yeah, so that's very nice. Yeah, definitely.
Food maintains the body. The body will deteriorate because of the lack of food, but the soul will energize the body. So those who focus on the spiritual life, they're getting energy from the spiritual energy. That's why yogis, they can fast for months.
Yes, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. I'll definitely follow it. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice question. Dear devotees, we are almost at the 1 hour mark, and any more last minute questions or any realizations to share, you can please go ahead.
Okay. Nishringa Leela, are you there? I can see your name.
Yes, Kumara, she is there online.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah,
I'm here.
after the class, I want to talk to you. Can I call you?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, just as soon as we end, I'll give you a call.
Yes, I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Okay, I think we
Yes,
can.
yeah, it's good much. Yeah, we can end the call here. I don't see anybody raised hand. Thank you so
Okay.
much once again for the reminders, Guru Maharaj. Thank you everyone for participating. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you so
And
much.
I'll send you that text that I read from today.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, please.
And
Thank you
can
so
make
much.
it available.
Yes,
You
Guru
can
Maharaj.
make it available to anyone who writes to you.
Yeah, I have put my email on the chat and I'll post in the WhatsApp group too. So if anybody wants the document, please email me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Obeisance to everyone. Happy Ekadashi. And chant, chant, chant.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare
Very
Krishna.
good.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.